Well, hello there again. Salutations. Welcome. Since it is the year of the tiger with the Lunar New Year, as well as having the Olympics happening in China as I am filming, we will be discussing the merits of the film Hero, a 2002 film that was not released to American audiences until 2004. And it was directed by Chinese director Zhang Yimou. And for this movie, I will be drinking a rice wine, baijiu, a Chinese delicacy. And this one hails from... Why can't I say... It's not like I'm saying that it is a country, it's just where it comes from. It's not as if I'm bringing up or the or the... I'm just saying... You know what? Fine. I guess I'll just be having this Yanjing beer from China. Wanted to find Tsingtao, but couldn't find it, so this will have to suffice. Anyway, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, do all the YouTube stuffs as we get into the essay entitled... Okay, let's talk about that word. Propaganda. It's pretty loaded. It's essentially any form of communication that is meant to influence its audience and further the political or religious agenda of those that are behind it. Propaganda can mask itself in almost every form of communication that there is. You've got journalism, ad campaigns, political slogans, and entertainment. You name it, anything with an underlying message that is meant to be spread to the masses, that can be used as propaganda. Propaganda has a tendency to be compared to manipulation, and of course that is true. However, in film, to be honest, in all forms of art, they are meant to influence the audience. It's all make-believe that's meant to manipulate the audience's emotions and make them feel things that the director, the writer, the producers, the actors, make them feel what they want you to feel. Whether it is fear in horror films, love in romance films, or excitement in action films. And to be honest, everyone who creates art has a point of view, a perspective, and probably values that they want to present in their work. And those who don't do that, well, I think they're called Michael Bay? Are all political films propaganda? No. Are you stupid? Why would you ask that question? In terms best said by Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart, when trying to define pornography, I know it when I see it. And I guess another question is propaganda a bad thing? Just objectively, is propaganda bad? That's where we get a little dicey, because propaganda has been in cinema for as long as cinema has been around. Propaganda is essentially just a tool, only as nefarious as those who are wielding it. And while it is typically associated with authoritarian regimes, such as Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and North Korea, other more democratic societies have also engaged in propaganda. They have used and continue to use propaganda as ways to feed the masses their point of view, especially during wartime. You've got the film career of Audie Murphy, who is essentially just doing cinematic interpretations of war events that he participated in. We also have Red Dawn, Top Gun, and 1517 to Paris, which are all examples of propagandist films from an American lens. Red Dawn in particular, it started off as this anti-war film that was essentially just Lord of the Flies, but while America is being invaded by the Russians and the Cubans, and it eventually turned into what we saw in the 1980s. Rambo with teens. Hell, even the big budget blockbusters in American cinema, especially the MCU, when they have American military personnel being portrayed on films, if they want money from the Defense Department, or if they want to use military equipment to make their movies feel realistic, they have to portray the military in a certain light. And the military reads through the script and okays their portrayal of American military. It's just a thing that happens to this day. I guess there are propagandist elements to the character and films of Captain America. Who'da thunk it? While this is just a very reductive way to view propaganda, just think of it as like themes the filmmakers are trying to promote that comply with what the society wants to be shown to the masses. And especially when the state is involved in the production of the films. Follow the money. So when we think of modern day examples of propaganda that comes from authoritarian regimes, we don't have to look much further than China. Look at the 2016 film The Great Wall. Most of you didn't. When the film was announced, and also announcing that Matt Damon was going to be the protagonist of this film, many critics bashed it for being what is called a white savior narrative, showing this central European character who is supposed to save the day in ancient China. As most of those who criticized the film initially did not go to see the film in reality, I can attest that that is not the case. My brother and I went to go see the film in China in a packed audience. And what we saw was not Matt Damon saving the Chinese people. It was more corrupt Westerner becomes awestruck by the military might of the Chinese people and helps fight the embodiment of capitalistic greed alongside his comrades. Literally, one of the quotes by William, played by Matt Damon, is, he also has this weird accent. I'm gonna do it. It's not a real accent. I was born into battle. It's like Liam Neeson doing an American accent. I fought for greed and gods. This is the first war that I've seen that was worth fighting. It's honestly a fascinating piece of cinema. Not great, mind you. Just, I'm glad it exists. And it was directed by the guy who directed Hero, Zhang Yimou. So I can be your hero, baby. Hero might have been the earliest film that I dragged my parents to go see. Beyond the animation, fucking Pokemon the movie, of course I dragged them to go see it. I had a birthday party like that, for Christ's sakes. But no, this is the first movie that I saw the trailer for, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to see that. We're going. You see, growing up, I was addicted to this video game series called Dynasty Warriors, starting with Dynasty Warriors 3, the peak of the Dynasty Warriors franchise. It's a kick-ass video game where you fight hordes of enemies as this one magical superhero, and you gain health by eating baozi. China. But eventually I found out that the characters that I was playing in this crazy pseudo-fantasy video game, they were real people, set in a real point in history, specifically the Three Kingdoms time period in China, after the fall of the Han Dynasty. So at like 11 years old, I read the English translation of Luo Guanzhong's Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It has about 800,000 words and is broken up into 4 volumes. And I pounded through those suckers within a month. Don't you tell me that video games are bad for child development, alright? I read 800,000 word tomes, and I took Chinese in high school because of the video games. Come on. I learned. So I was essentially about everything medieval China when I was growing up. That's where I was coming from when I saw this movie. So obviously I saw the trailer for Hero, and I was in. 100%. I had to go. The film Hero takes place prior to the unification of China, during the Warring States period, with a narrative device where a nameless hero, played by Jet Li, is telling Emperor Qin Shi Huang, played by Chen Daoming, how he vanquished the iconic enemies of the Kingdom of Qin. Long Sky, played by Donnie Yen, Broken Sword, played by Tony Leung, and Flying Snow, played by Maggie Cheung. The film is broken up into multiple sections and is heavily influenced by Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon, where an unreliable narrator tells stories within stories, and the truth is eventually revealed at the end. And to streamline the plot so everyone's on the same page, spoilers for Hero, a 20-year-old film, Jet Li presents himself as a low-ranking member of the Qin bureaucracy, who kills the enemies one by one. But in reality, he is the leader of a cadre of assassins, where he publicly fights and beats the three, making making it look like they are dead, so that he, with his unique ability to be unable to be stopped within 10 paces of his target, can get that close and kill the Emperor. The director, Zhang Yimou, has done several films that has broken through and gained international appeal. I've already touched on Hero and the Great Wall, but he also directed 2004's House of Flying Daggers, 2011's The Flowers of War, and 2018's Shadow. You should watch Shadow. All of his films that I've mentioned, apart from The Great Wall, were either China's entry to Best Foreign Language Film to the Academy Awards, or have been lauded in film festivals throughout the world. But he is not just famous for the work that he does on the silver screen. Zhang Yimou was chosen to direct the opening and closing ceremonies of the Olympic Games, both in 2008 and in 2022. That's right, folks, all you Olympic stans out there, you've all seen his work. Whether it was the insane drumming of 2008 that led to one of the weirdest South Park episodes of all time, or the creepy children singing while they're holding up lights or something. I was very confused as to what I was supposed to feel about 2022's opening ceremonies. Probably not Children of the Corn, though. Knowing that China, as a country and as a state, is very, well, let's say, particular about those they choose to honor for such esteemed positions. Zhang Yimou is able to, at the very least, toe the Communist Party line, despite several China-based critics who attack his work for pandering to Western audiences and portraying China as weak, vulnerable, and exotic. In Hero, the primary antagonist of the film is Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. The film makes no mistake to present him, at least for a majority of the film, as a tyrant. He talks glibly about expanding his kingdom, which would only mean spreading war. His armies rain down arrows onto a calligraphy school simply because it's in an opposing nation. And his paranoia has him wearing armor at all times and never letting anyone get within 100 paces of him. And while his tyranny might be apt, especially when we look at the historical basis for the character, Qin Shi Huang in this film is ultimately presented as admirable. It is what they choose to highlight about this emperor and what they choose to leave out that shows why he is more on the good side when it comes to this film rather than the bad side, which may have been reality. It shows that he unified China and he built the Great Wall. Not that his rule was so untenable that after he died, China quickly devolved into 18 distinct kingdoms. It highlights the fact that he codified the Chinese writing system so that everyone in China, wherever they were, wrote the same thing. It didn't highlight the fact that he burned books and executed scholars. And the film represents him as somebody who is honorable and respects his enemies. Not that he was so addicted to the idea of immortality that he probably died of mercury poisoning because he was taking mercury pills to give him immortality.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And this is where we get to the crux of the propaganda of the film, the resolution. All of the assassins in the film hail from the kingdom of Zhao, an enemy of Qin, and they all have lost something because of Qin Shi Huang. But when the plan is set in motion, and Nameless is about to go through with it, Broken Sword goes to Nameless and tells him not to assassinate the tyrant, because of our land. Not only is the tyrant allowed to rule, he should rule, because he's the only one, through violence, who can bring peace to our kingdoms. That's the message. So when the time comes, Nameless jumps up and jabs the hilt of his sword into the belly of Qin Shi Huang, with the point facing behind him. He fails to assassinate the tyrant, and in doing so, signs his own death warrant for the sake of our land. He literally loses his individuality and his individual status. He dies for the sake of the community, the greater good, the state. Don't worry that you were orphaned by this man, or that your father died and you've been planning vengeance for your whole life, or that you were left to wander the countryside because you don't have a home because of him. No, because he's doing this, all of your torment was for the greater good. That's what Hiro's saying. Or at least could be read to be saying. To be fair to Zhang Yimou, who must be coming across as this bastion of PRC ideology in this essay. In a Guardian article in 2004, he states that he is not political. His art has no political intent. But that's what I would say about probably what Clint Eastwood says, and American Sniper in 1517 to Paris would beg to differ. But if you look into Zhang Yimou's broader filmography, you see that his next film, House of Flying Daggers, has a much more critical view of the centralized government of China, at least of the time, showing the soldiers of that film to be brutal and corrupt. This was not meant to say that Hero is a propaganda film. I'm just trying to read it as such because it's interesting. It's a story of a man driven by vengeance who lost everything and trained himself to be this perfect warrior, at least within 10 paces. And after gathering his allies and doing everything that he needs to do to get to the point where he can kill the tyrant who took away his family, he chooses not to because apparently the country needs a strong man who can crush all of the other kingdoms to make the people one and bring peace. It sounds a little propaganda-y to me, but as films have multiple themes and it's a thoughtful film, I can see why Zhang would think that it is not propaganda. However, if the film, with nothing changed, came out 10 years later while it was under the Xi regime, and especially thinking of what China and Xi Jinping has done in the last couple of years, it seems like it's an apt comparison to a modern-day version of propaganda. But why do I still love this film? I'm uneasy, to say the least, about its message, and I abhor and condemn tyranny.
This is my fight song.
But I cannot help but place this film as one of my favorite foreign films of all time. It's gorgeous. The Australian/Hong Konger cinematographer, Christopher Doyle, he took the 5 sections narrative and he color-coded it. So when Nameless lies, the color is red. When the Emperor is saying that you're lying and this is what I think happened, it's blue. Nameless is telling the true story, it is white. And when Broken Sword is telling his backstory, it is green. And when Nameless fights Sky, it is black. The color coding helps, especially English language viewers who don't catch all of the subtitles, because when it's a different color, you can clearly tell it's a different version of the story. And that helped when I was a kid trying to watch this movie. I couldn't catch all the reading. I still don't know how to watch this movie without subtitles, but I can catch a couple words, you know? And another reason why I think this movie is just fantastic is it is essentially the most wuxia movie to ever wuxia. Wuxia is the Chinese martial arts subgenre which is set in the past. Ancient Chinese martial arts films. That's what it is. And boy does this movie have all of the hits. Fight in a tea house with the rain with a blind musician playing. You got that. Heroes dancing on wires while they block off arrows with a sword and sleeves. Got that too. A duel in a wooded glen as leaves are falling, and at some point a character uses the leaves as a weapon. Make that 3. How about a duel on a lake where gravity seems to be not a thing? Boom! A hero showing their skills by doing something impossible? Right here. Twice. Heroes cutting through horde of faceless enemies with superhuman strength. That's here too. A fight against an enemy where flowing sheets of silk hide the hero's movements. Right here. If you want to see a wuxia movie, watch Hero. It's martial arts. So let's talk about the fight scenes. This movie delivers. Donnie Yen as Sky is perfect. He fights these Qin attackers and they all fight him and he doesn't even unsheath his spear. He breaks their swords and just is about to wander off because he shows that he's so much better than them and they are not worth his time to even kill them. It isn't until Nameless appears and shows his strength and skill that Sky unsheathes his spear. spear. You know you're a badass when you have your own visual representation of maximum effort. And Jet Li as the central character is fantastic in all of his fight scenes as well. You would know this if you've seen movies like Cradle to the Grave and The One. And the fight scene in the trees has a fantastic moment where you've got Snow on the ground. Snow the character, not actual Snow. It's actually more autumn in this scene. Snow is on the ground and Moon is diving towards her. Snow is watching a piece of her hair that was cut fall to the ground. And she doesn't even look at Moon and she says,
你既然找死，我成全你。
Damn. That is cold-blooded. And Tony Leung's broken sword, while having only a brief amount of time fighting, he's more of a calligrapher in this film, he does have his moments. And through his fight scene, you can see that he is bringing wisdom beyond his years as he fights the Emperor, and chooses to spare him. And what's more of a badass move than, instead of killing the person you want to assassinate, choosing not to kill the person, but proving to them that you could. The Emperor tore down all of his sheets because Tony Leung lives rent-free in his head. And it is always a plus to have Zhang Ziyi be in your martial arts wuxia film, playing in this film the character Moon, Broken Sword's loyal disciple. This came out in 2002 in China. So think about this. In 5 years, she did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in 2000, Rush Hour 2 in 2001, Hero in 2002, and House of Flying Daggers in 2004. All before she turned 25 years old. The woman's a national treasure. Not an American national treasure, but a national treasure. Maybe even an international treasure. I don't know. She's amazing. So am I saying that 2002's Hero is equivalent to Triumph of the Will? Of course not. But then again, as culture and society have progressed, and film language has evolved, so too have the tools of propaganda. I would compare the propagandist nature of this film to the 2000 Roland Emmerich film, The Patriot, not to be confused with the fantastic and wrongfully canceled Amazon series, Patriot. Comparing The Patriot to Hero, it attempts to mythologize the creation of each country's inception by creating a hero that embodies the virtues of said nation. It is less vilifying China's enemies as it is deifying the Chinese state, as it allows prosperity for its people. However, in some way, this form of propaganda can be even more insidious than just outright showing military parades showing their military might, like parading nuclear missiles down Main Street. Or the posters of homosexual Soviet and Chinese men holding hands as they bring about revolution across the world, as this form of propaganda weaves in the exaltation of the past to the present, and allows for a visual and artistic representation of how individuals should look at the state. 2002's Hero, it's flawed, arguably rotten to its core, but the film is still beautiful to look at, no matter what you think of its presumed political intentions. It is well worth a watch. And the next time you watch a movie and there's a theme that makes you think, makes you wonder, was this theme brought to me genuinely, or is there some sort of nefarious backdoor dealings going on that is, somebody wants me to think this way? Just know that you can appreciate art even if you don't believe in what it is saying, unless that art is being directed by Leni Riefenstahl. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. It's all good. Happy Lunar New Year. 新天恭喜.